What's going on in the shot, Mateo?
Not much because it's all foggy and smoky and you can't tell. Last week we had that fridge shot where like we're not sure what we're looking at, and then the robot and Does God Love Robots opens up the fridge and we're like, that's what's going on, and it's that like that push and pull of tension and payoff.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have the tension where we can clearly see like down below kind of the edge of a gun, and then we see these sort of gas mask like figures, but it's so like in shadow.
Mm-hmm.
My personal view of the composition is that the eye is a muscle too, so you are with your eye basically feeling the movement as you get attracted from like the very light kind of splash of white in the center, and then you get pulled to like the more subtle like reflections on the visors of the gas masks.
I'm really glad you brought up that that tension of, what are we looking at? Oh, it's this, but like, what is it? But oh, okay, cool. Like that back and forth is literally that plays out throughout this entire shot.
An additional tension here is the white, specifically on like the left edge of this shot. There's already a leading line with the barrel of that gun in the corner of the frame that draws you up towards the white. But it's so crowded towards the side of that shot that it provides a weird tension with all the black space on the left.
And because the character on the left is looking into the left of the frame while also being like relatively close up against it, that's what we call short sighting. And so if you want to create like a sense of tension and claustrophobia, just have someone looking into the side of the frame that they're closest to.
If you look at a lot of like paintings that have energy to them, you'll see a lot of the same, either short sighting or just something cut off at the edge of the frame. It makes it feel crowded despite being a wide frame in this case.
I want to point out the symmetry in this shot. What do you feel like the symmetry does for you, Mateo?
It focuses our eyes right on our actor Colton in the middle.
For me, symmetry and beauty are kind of interlinked, and I think there's a really interesting juxtaposition between the symmetry in this shot and then also the fact that like something terribly has gone wrong in it. That beauty through the symmetry juxtaposed with that, I think, is really interesting. And so even though there's not like a question being asked in the shot, I think that creates the tension that the shot needs to be interesting.
There's that same symmetry again,
right?
This time much more pronounced.
Yeah, and we mentioned how like you can create different feelings through using the same technique, but just using it in different ways. And so in this shot, we're creating a sense of like tension and claustrophobia by framing you, the main character, in between these two people who are at this club dancing. Whereas like kind of in the first shot of the film that we looked at with the operators in the woods, we created that through the negative fill, the negative space, but it was a similar wide shot.
Another bit, and obviously I was on that side of the camera because that's me, but you can see the way the fingers almost match up with the railing, and to bring in this almost prison bar feel to it.
Mm-hmm. I really like the shot. This is, I think, my favorite shot in the movie. Just between the layers of light and shadow, the way that we used the gobo and the projector light to project those blinds onto your character, and the way that like part of you is illuminated by it and part of you is not. We have depth because we have the TV on, and then we have like shadow and darkness on either side of it. We have a chair to the left, a white chair that's like peeking into the frame. We also have the white vent that's on the door to the right, kind of right middle of the frame. These layers of light and shadow represent like show themselves in multiple ways, and I think that creates a lot of depth. And then also the way the leading lines between the wires that kind of go off to the left, and then they connect to you and all the peripherals around you. This shot just has so much visual cohesion while also looking really messy, and I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, it's really strong. It almost reminds me of like a Renaissance battle scene in many ways.
This shot.
Here we are focusing again.
Yeah. So I mentioned in the in Jack's film that we watched a little bit ago how light can kind of draw your eyes to certain parts of the frame, and I think this shot represents that idea more than almost any other shot. Clear spotlight on you. I think you would be the focus of the shot regardless, but here, I mean, there's a specific feeling that we're obviously trying to get across here.
It's downright Lynchian.
One thing I like about it is that this shot has a lot of symmetry and it has a lot of balance because it's like, framed as like a center shot. Subject is in the middle. But if you notice to the left, we have this dark doorway, and on the right, we have this like lamp that's lighting up the wall. And, your outstretched hands in combination with that framing choice, it kind of gives the impression that you're trying to make a choice here. There's two different paths that you could go down. And so in the film, this happens after, some pivotal moments. And, the character is thinking about which path to take next. Does he want to go towards what he knows is good for him, or does he want to go down this self-destructive path? And I feel like this shot communicates that what's going on in his brain perfectly.
It's really well done. This shot was more or less done on a whim. We had the general idea, but this was the more sort of let's get crazy with it, let's get artistic with it, and throw it away if it doesn't work.
Yeah, we were gonna do something a bit more basic. We were just gonna film you getting into bed, but this was like an on-set decision that I think was a really good one. Okay, moving on to our last shot for today. It's a powerful shot. What does this shot bring to mind, Mateo?
The ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, where Adam reaches out to touch God's hand.
There's a lot of like iconography in this film. The previous shot with like kind of the outstretched hands was one of them, and then this one of like the Adam and God like almost touching but not quite. This is supposed to elicit a similar feeling. I want to point out the backlight. So I think that if you're trying to decide how to light a scene, always default to just having a backlight. Either use the backlight as your key light or just make sure that you have one in the first place, because having a backlight it creates so much depth, so much visual separation, and it just looks beautiful. Also, you can get lucky and get these really beautiful lens flares like the one that we have here.
The way the pistol is kind of highlighted by it, and yet obscured.
This is a fun scene. I don't think you've seen this scene edited yet, but it's very intense and very fun. Well, I think that concludes us looking at screenshots from our feature film. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit about composition. I know we've kind of talked about it in a more, kind of loose terms, but also I hope that these examples kind of bring it home in a more applicable way.
Again, there's a lot of people out there who can tell you the rules, and there's a lot of people out there who will tell you to break the rules, and sometimes they're wrong. But here's a few little practical applications and how we broke some rules.
I've been your host, Zachary Koch.
I've been your host, Mateo Guthrie.
And you should go make a movie.
Go make one right now. This has been Your Next Film. Bye.
Peace out.
Ciao, ciao.